Good morning and welcome to my channel. My name is Christina and I like to colour. This is the more detailed instructional video on how I coloured in the grandma side of the Little Match Girl. Now I will start with, I had serious problems figuring out where things were, so a lot of my colouring initially was just trying to get things sorted out so I could actually see what was going on, because the main reason I didn't do this page to begin with was because I couldn't quite comprehend what was going on in that second page there. But I think I kind of understood it, not 100% sure, but yeah, it is what it is. It looks all right. So anyway, I wanted to do this flame the same that I did with the Little Match Girl. So I wanted it watercolor base because that makes it more blended, and it just seems to look a lot more like the glowing of a flame when it's all blended together. So a flame, if you don't know, it starts lighter in the middle and goes out darker. So I color in the whole thing with yellow, and then I blend the orange and a little bit of the red on the outside of the flames. Now this is adding the orange. I don't want the whole thing to be orange, but I also don't want the whole thing to be yellow. So it's a balancing act. And I start out with coloring in the shadows that Kerby has so graciously put in the flame circle, whatever it is, and I work my way in. Now I still want the middle to be generally yellow, but I want majority of the outside orange with little bits of yellow. And the red is mainly for the whole outside and the darker shadows. So I'll mainly do the outside and then some of the little shadows that are in the circle there. And the next step that I do, obviously, because these are watercolor pencils, is to grab my water brush or water paintbrush or whatever it's called. It's a little brush filled with water. Now, I always give it a squeeze and wipe it on my towel, and because I don't want too much water to come out, because if you squeeze it, then a whole lot of water is going to come out and then your page is just going to be wet. Now, I don't know what is going on with my camera on this page. I think it might be because it couldn't focus on anything. Like usually there's a face or something that the camera can focus on, and it doesn't try and focus on my pencils. But on this page, it just kept trying to focus on the pencils. So it's irritating, but it is what it is. But yeah, so I always dab the paintbrush after changing colors, and I usually try to start with the light, going from the light to the dark. But with this one, it doesn't matter so much because I wanted it blended together. And I will go over it again with more Prismacolors and probably more Albrecht Durer pencil colors as well, watercolors as well. Now, I wanted to do the bricks exactly the same as how I did the bricks on the other page, because otherwise it just wouldn't make sense. So being a double page spread, I wanted to do it the same. So I start with a light color. So I start with the powder blue and I go over all the bricks with a light pressure, not hard. And then next I will go onto the indigo blue, or I should. Now, like I said before, my whole purpose here is to just try and figure out what is what. So I'm trying to figure out what is brick, what is not, what is things being pulled and that. So my initial thing here is just trying to get the color down so that my brain can finally go, oh, that's what it is. because I was still having troubles at this stage, just understanding what was being pulled and what wasn't, and what was where and what was snow and what wasn't. So I just wanted to get the base color down of just about everything, and then I'll work on the colors and building up the layers once I had the page set out in my mind. Now, the main reason for adding another color to the bricks is to give it dimension and to add the shadows, because if you just leave it just one color or just one or two light colors, it's not going to have dimension and 3D feel and definition. So I'm adding the indigo blue mainly on the edges of the bricks just to give it a cold look and to give it shadows, and more on the right hand side of the bricks because the sun in my fantasy Kerby Rosanes world is coming from the top left, so the shadow is going to be on the right hand side of the bricks. And I also do just a couple of lines down on each of the bricks just in case there's a crack in the brick or something and there's a shadow inside that crack. Don't forget that there is snow, or what I think is snow, in between all the bricks there. It's hard to decipher. At first I thought there were cracks in the bricks, but then thinking about the page and what was going on, I realized it was snow. So make sure you leave that not dark blue. And all those little snowflakes there that are everywhere, I just color over them because I'm going to go over them with white acrylic paint or white gouache paint or whatever, and that will go over any colored pencil that I have over them. So you don't need to worry about coloring over them because that's not going to be a problem. And after I've finished the indigo blue, I want these shadows to be a little bit darker on the edges of the bricks. So I'm going to get the black Prismacolor, which in my opinion is one of the better blacks. That one and Holbein are very decent, for lack of a better word. It is the morning. I don't think so well in the morning. I don't think so well in the afternoon either, to be honest. But anyway. I want the shadows just on the very tops, sides and the bottoms, so not really going too far down. So just drawing a line pretty much, just so that the definition of the shadows and the definition of the bricks becomes more obvious, and building up those shadows. And I will go over the black again, as I usually do, with the indigo blue because I don't want it to stay black. If I go over the black with the indigo blue, then it's still dark, but it's blue. Well, it's got a blue black tinge, so I don't want it to stay black. I want it to be a very dark blue. So that is why I add the black to add the shadow, and then I use the indigo blue to go over it again. Like I've said many, many, many times, it is just layers and layers and layers, and that That is what I like to do. I don't know about anyone else. I don't know if people just like to do one layer or whatever, but I cannot get it to look the way that I want it to look with just one layer. So that is why I go over and over and over it, and I build up the layers. I don't just wham bam, thank you ma'am, throw it all down and that's it. I slowly build up layers. I spend hours off camera going over the same thing that I've gone over on camera just to build up the layers. And I'm doing here exactly what I said I was going to do, going over the black with the indigo blue and also going over the indigo blue bits again just to darken it a little bit, because the more you go over it, the darker it's going to get, obviously. So just going over all of the bricks and all of the black and adding the shadows again. Now, if you can hear panting, that is my pugs. It is winter here, but it is not too cold. And they are sitting in the sun and they are panting. And I don't think they're smart enough to realize that if they're hot, they need to get out of the sun. So if you hear panting, it's them, because for some reason, pugs are very loud. I don't know if you've ever been near a pug or whatever, but anything to do with breathing and anything like that, they're so loud. And now they're going to start barking and make their pug growling noises. They sound like an alien when they run. I have to be my female especially, because she's a frog. My other one is a pugalier, so he's got a longer nose, but she's got a very short, stubby nose, and she sounds like an alien trying to eat you. Anyway, back to colored pencil. I'm now going to do the powder blue, which is the lightest color that I used on the bricks, and I'm going to blend it all together. This is how I usually blend things together. So I'll start usually with the lighter color and then I'll work up to the darkest color. If I use black, I'll always go over it with the color that I want it to be, because if I didn't go over the black with the indigo blue, this powder blue here would be blending black everywhere, and I don't want that. So that is one of the other reasons why I go over the indigo blue, because when I do blend, the black, sorry, when I do blend, I don't want black everywhere. I want the blue to come down a little bit. And because, so this is the constant problem that you have when coloring, because I've gone over it all with the lighter color, the powder blue, and I've blended it down, I then lose my shadows again. But I haven't lost them all, so I need to go over them again because I've just blended it all. So the next thing I'm going to have to do is go over it with the indigo blue again and try and get my shadows back. Now this is the indigo blue, and I'm just trying to get my shadows back dark from when I just blended the powder blue. And the indigo blue doesn't make it dark enough, so I add the black again because I lost the black before when I went over it with the powder blue. Now I actually do something different here I don't usually do, and I will do the black and then I will get the powder blue and go over just the inside of the brick so I don't hit the black. I don't blend the black into the bricks, but I want the black to stay there. I must have wanted it nice and dark and shadowy. It mustn't have been dark enough for me. So usually I would go over it with indigo blue. I'm not 100% sure why I didn't. I probably should have. Maybe I'd do again later. I'm not sure. But with this powder blue, the next step that I do, I don't go over the black, or try not to go over the black. Getting a little bit is fine, but you don't want it all over your brick. See how I'm just sticking to the middle of the brick? I'm just trying to get the highlight back in there again, and I'm trying to leave the dark shadow dark. So just try not to get the black and all is good. And the next thing I do is the snow between the bricks. I'm still trying to figure out what is going on in my brain because some of the bricks still don't make sense to me. And I think at the end I do figure it out how I want. But right now I'm just putting down a layer of white to try and make it so that I can see what is going on. But make sure you don't get the black, because if you get the black, you're going to have, well, grey. It doesn't matter so much because snow can be grey. Can also be yellow too. But yeah, I get the white here, and then I'm going to get powder blue and then china blue and go over it again, just trying to find where the snow is and where I want the snow to be. And this is the powder blue just going over the white. Snow isn't white. Snow tends to have a blue tinge to it. I don't know why. I don't go into why these things happen. I just know when I see a picture of snow, majority of the time it looks kind of bluish. So I want it blue, but I also want it white, if you know what I mean. So a blue white. I don't want to push too hard because then it will just be blue and then it will just look like a brick. So I'm going to try and do the outline with the china blue. Right now in my mind I'm still trying to figure out what is going on and what I'm doing. So I'm not 100% sure. And I'm just thinking, and it takes my brain a while to think. Now, colouring is always about looking and checking and seeing if you like what you have done. Now, I didn't like what I'd done too much. I liked the blue tinge, but I also wanted it to have a little bit of a shadow to it. And that is why I added the 50% cool grey. I just wanted a little bit of a shadow because it just wasn't looking quite right to me. It was looking kind of like part of the bricks and it was bugging me. So the whole thing with colouring is to colour it and then take a step back and have a look and figure out what you like and what you don't like about it. Now the black here is to try and just add a little bit of the shadow to the snow and to the bricks again. And because I don't want the snow to be grey or blue or white, I keep adding colours just to try and figure out what it is that I want. So it was probably a little bit too grey, so I added more powder blue to it, and then I'm going to go over it with white again, and I still need to define the shadows and that of the snow, but I'm going to go back to the flame in a minute because it should be dry, and I'm just trying to lay out where everything is, and then I'll go back and do all the definitions and highlights and the major shadows when I've figured it all out. Now this is going over the dried, make sure it's dry. If you try and colour over it when it's wet, it's just not going to work so well, and you may rip the paper as well. Going over the majority of it with yellow chartreuse, just to blend it all. And the next step will be getting the orange and going over the orange parts with the orange again, and then I get the crimson red in the Prismacolor and just do the edges and the red bits that I want darker. Now this could all be done using the Albrecht Durer watercolor pencils. There's no problem, you could do that, you would get the exact same effect. I just wanted to go over the watercolor pencils with dry pencils and then blend it all together. I think, in my personal opinion, this spirally flame light looks good blended and not with all lines in it. So that is why I have chosen to do it the way that I do it. And I also get the Caran d'Ache blender and blend it all together. I just wanted it nice and smooth. I didn't want any grainy stuff in it. And then I wanted everything to blend together. And now onto the crimson red. You don't want to put too much crimson red on here because it's just mainly on the outside and on the, the deep shadows where you will see the red. So try not to put too much red on here. If you do, just erase it. It doesn't matter. And it's not the end of the world if you do. I just wanted the outside and the shadows to have red in it. So still working on the flame, I've got my Caran d'Ache blender and I'm just blending those Prismacolors that I put together on there. You could do the exact same with the watercolor pencils. You'll get the same. I just didn't want to add too much water to this page because it tends to buckle a little bit. So I wanted the dry pencils over the top. And at this very stage, I'm still trying to figure out where that flame is. And I figured out that it does go down lower, but it did bug me because then it doesn't match the other side of the flame. I don't know why. It isn't equal. But I figured out that the flame goes down a little bit lower, and then I erase it, and then I end up putting it back because it definitely goes down that far. I'm pretty sure that is the flame. And I'm using the watercolor because it's the base, and the base of the whole flame is watercolor pencils. Sometimes it gets frustrating when I can't figure out what is going on, and with this page I just had so much trouble. My brain was just having brain farts absolutely everywhere. So I was coloring and then erasing and then going over and then changing the color, and it drove me insane, this page, but I think it turns out pretty good. But anyway, I've got the blender going because, like I said before, I wanted all of it to blend together and be smooth. And then I figure out here that I'm going to add the orange, the flame, further down low. And if you're doing it now, just do that little white bit in the middle there too, because I'm pretty sure I add that as a flame too, when my brain finally figures out that it makes more sense that it's the flame and nothing else. So I just do this part here the same as what I did the base of the flame, using the watercolor pencil and the watercolor pen, water brush pen. And down the bottom here is some more snow that goes onto the other page. So I just get the powder blue and the china blue and the white, and go over it and make some definition on the little bit of snow that is there. And because the part of the flame that I just fixed up is on the outside of the ring of the flame, I will add more middle cad red to it just to make it darker, because that is what it should be in my mind. In your mind, if your flame is different, then don't worry about adding the cad red, but in my mind, flames are yellow, orange, and then red. They can be blue in the middle, but that's more of a gas flame, and this isn't a gas, this is a match. Now, I know that that is a Christmas tree, but I'm not 100% sure where things end, so I'm just trying to figure it out with my chartreuse of where the Christmas tree is. So with very light layer, I'm going to go over the part of the Christmas tree that I can see. And I can see a lot, but as you follow it, things change. So just carefully follow the tree to where the points are. I figured out that where there are baubles is where there is going to be tree. That was part of my thinking. So wherever there was a bauble, I figured it would be green for the tree. And the camera, for some reason, really didn't like it when I got the dark green. It just kept trying to focus on the dark green. Because while I was away in Brisbane, I got some new pencils, or the ones that were like 1 centimeter tall. So I've got really tall pencils now, and the camera just seemed to have a hissy fit and didn't like them. So I'm gonna have to try and figure that out. It's very frustrating, but it is what it is. So like I said before, just going over the whole of this tree. Try not to go over the baubles. It's not the end of the world if you do. You can either erase it or go over it with another color. The snowflakes on the tree you can go over without a problem. But yeah, just try to avoid the baubles. I am not doing a full hard layer. I'm not completely coloring the whole thing in. It is not neat coloring. I am just trying to get a color down just so I can see the tree and so that I can start with the shadows and the blending process that I do. And so that is why usually my first layer isn't going to be absolutely perfect. There's going to be white streaks in there, there's going to be dots. You're going to see some of the pencil lines, and that doesn't bother me because I know I'm going to fix it up later on. There's nothing really else I can say about this first layer on the Christmas tree. I will say that I actually really like the Prismacolor chartreuse green. I like it. It's a really nice green, and I also like the yellow chartreuse as a highlight to that if it calls for it. But yeah, I really like the combination of the chartreuse and the dark green. When you blend them together, they look really good. And I like how the Christmas tree ends up looking with the dark green. It is July here in Australia, or everywhere, I suppose. That sentence didn't make sense. Yeah, you know what I mean. Anyway, it is winter here, and I'm in Queensland, and it is not that cold. It is getting cold in the mornings, I will admit. I go for a walk with a beanie and gloves on, but it is warming up, and I saw some magpies the other day. The other day. Oh God, what's going on with my voice? I don't talk this much. Usually I sit in the room and don't do anything. I don't talk to anyone. I just colour. But yeah, I saw some magpies the other day, and they had all these strings and things that they build their nest with. And magpies are horrendous here. I don't know if magpies are everywhere. I don't think they are. But they swoop, and they like to hit you with their beak, and they're not friendly. So I'm nice to magpies all year round. They are very smart birds. But anyway, my point is there are lots of birds tweeting today. They are going absolutely mental out the back there. And I think it's because it's starting to warm up, so they're all getting horny or whatever it is that they're doing, and they're all building their nests. So if you hear lots of birds, there's nothing I can do about it. They're just, well, we have a bird called the noisy miner. It says it all. It is a noisy bird. I heard birds. I was out the front waiting for my son the other day, and I saw magpies on the ground, and I saw all these noisy miners, and they were all going mental, and I thought they were having a fight. And so I walked over there, and I saw a brown snake. So they were all flying down and pecking the eyeballs out of this brown snake. That brown snake looked at me, and I turned the other way and I ran. Anyway, I'm only talking about this because there's nothing much else I can say about this Christmas tree right now. I'm just doing this base layer. Doesn't need to be perfect. I love this green, and I'm trying to figure out where the hell this damn tree goes. So I'm pretty proud of myself for eventually figuring out where parts of this tree goes. I think I do have some other bits that I color in because I miss them, but I've pretty much figured out the basic of the tree, and that there is some like smoke coming from the tree. And I think that that part was getting me. I wasn't quite sure what it was. So I didn't know if I wanted to do the smoke coming from the tree or coming around the tree blue or green. So I decided to do some green and the rest blue, just to indicate that I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking, to be honest. But once I've got this down and I color this, I'll then get out the dark green, and I'll go over all the shadows and all of the pointy leaf thingies, just trying to get the tree to look tree-like and give it some definition. Now I don't know why I erased that, because that's going to be green anyway, because that's the green smoke coming from the tree. But I obviously erased it because I wasn't ready to do it green yet. That's just the way I think. I wasn't ready for it, so it has to go. But I've figured out the tree, and the shadows are next. And this is my tall dark green, which the camera doesn't like, but I'm just just going to go over all of the shadows, and then all of the pointy bits on the leaves there, just to give it definition. And eventually I will do some lines in there just to add like pine, because Christmas trees are usually pine trees, I think. So just add some lines in there, but I don't do that now. Right now I'm just doing the shadows and adding definition on the points of all of the branches. This is still just a relatively light layer. I'm not pushing too hard. When I'm doing the line here that I'm doing on the point of the branch, I do it a little bit harder than what I do the rest of it, just because I don't want it to disappear. I want it to stay there. And so, yeah, I do the points of the branches, probably medium to heavy pressure, and then the rest light pressure. And as you build up the layers, now I know this is only the second kind of layer, but as you build up the layers, you can see the tree grow into like a 3D tree, or a more defined tree. So if you look at the left-hand side of the tree, it's just one color and it just looks flat and boring. But once you start adding the shadows and then start blending them together and then adding other parts, other elements, it turns into a really gorgeous bushy tree. And apologies for the camera, it really doesn't like that dark green, and it doesn't like the, I think I got a new indigo blue and black as well. But yeah, so I'm not finishing anything right now. Like I said, I'm just trying to sort out where everything is. So I'm just getting the base layer of the tree done, and the base layer of the flame and the bricks and all of that, just so that I can see where everything is. Now I know it keeps blurring in and out, but all I'm doing is going over the pointy branches of the tree and just the shadow areas that Kerby has so graciously put in there for us. So if you just do the point of the tree, point of the branches and the shadows that are there, that's exactly what I'm doing. And now onto this thing which I could not figure out what the hell it was. Oh, and I got my fruit tingles. You got to have energy when you're coloring, and just recently, I think like last year or something, Woolworths came out with whole bags of fruit tingles, and my world was blown because I love fruit tingles. And usually you could only buy them in a little pack, and I hadn't had them for years. And then I found this bag, and it was like, oh my God, my world is blown. And so, yeah, fruit tingles are a snack that I like to have, a, healthy snack. It's got fruit in it, so they say anyway. Sugar, I think it's sugar and bicarb and flavoring. I think that's all they are, but I love them. Anyway, this is the thing I could not figure out what it was. My husband told me it was a tablecloth after looking at it, and yeah, I tend to agree with him. I think it is a tablecloth. And so I decided I had trouble picking the color because the flame was orange, the tree was green, so I didn't put, I was thinking about either red or blue. Um, I just decided not to do blue, I decided to do purple. So I'm doing a base layer, as I usually do, of the lighter purple. So that is the grey lavender. And I'll go over the whole thing. It's not perfect, doesn't need to be perfect. I'm just trying to get the base layer done so I can get the shadows done so I can blend it all together. But this is just trying to figure out where everything is. I may have got some swirls wrong down the bottom, I don't know, but where I decided to have the tablecloth end and where the snow started, that's what I decided. So if you decide something different, then go for it. That is just how I saw it because, like I said, I was having trouble. But yeah, just as you can see, I'm going diagonally. I don't usually color like that, but I'm going diagonally, sideways, all that, because this first layer here doesn't really matter that much. I just want to get the color down so I can figure it out. See, I'm running my fingers along trying to figure out what the hell is going on because all this swirling down the bottom just had my mind going, what the hell is this? And now because I've got the pretty simple, quick, messy base layer down, I'm now going to go with the shadows and just try and figure out where they are. So I grabbed the dark purple, and Kerby has put the shadows in, which is awesome. So I'm just following his shadows. I usually add a little bit extra of my own just on the edges of things and things like that. But I want to get the shadows in so that I can see what is going on. So just follow his shadows, which is pretty much what I'm doing. And I usually do a darker layer on the lines as well. I wasn't too happy with this dark purple, to be honest. It wasn't as dark as what I was hoping. I swear there was another really dark purple in Prismacolor, but I couldn't find it. I didn't spend ages looking, but I had a quick look and I couldn't find it. So maybe it's a different brand, or maybe it was just hiding. I don't know. But I wasn't too happy with this dark purple. It wasn't quite as dark as what I wanted it to be. And this dark purple layer is not heavy, but it is heavier than the initial layer that I did with the grey lavender. And now it is time to get the grey lavender and blend everything together, and just this is where I start and this is where I'm starting. This is where I start to blend, neaten everything together. Neaten everything. All right, I'm going to start again. This is where I start to neaten things up. So I'm coloring a lot neater, and I'm trying to do it in the direction that the coloring is going. So the tablecloth is going this way, so I'm going to color that way. Sometimes I do go a different way because it's just easier, because otherwise I have to turn the book and then I have to make sure the camera's right. So, but this is the neatening and blending layer. And as you can see with the initial layer and the shadow layer, and now this blending layer, it is actually starting to get a little bit of definition, and I can actually finally see that it probably is a tablecloth, and it's starting to look like a tablecloth with shadows, a messy tablecloth, albeit, but yeah. I just wanted to go over the dark purple with the Parma violet. I still want the dark purple to be there for the darkness, but I prefer the purple of the Parma violet. And every time I say the word Parma violet, I go to say palmy, thinking of a palmy, parmigiana. We call them palmies. So if I say palmy, I mean Parma. But this is a much nicer, more lavenderish color, because I wasn't too keen on the dark purple, but I needed the dark purple there in order to get the darkness. And so going over the dark purple with the Parma violet has made me lose some of my shadows. So I will go over and fix that again. And now it is back to the bricks, and I'm going to get the indigo blue and try and figure out where the bricks are. And I think I add my own bricks as well in between the, so here I am. I'm adding my own bricks in between the gases or whatever they are, the pulling or the ethereal things, I don't know. So I'm making my own bricks here. And as I did with the previous bricks, I'm just going to do the indigo blue, and then I'm going to do the powder blue and blend it together with that, and then I get the black and do the definition of the shadows on the edges of the bricks. So exactly the same as what I did with all the other bricks. Just using the black there to try and get more definition on those bricks, more shadow, not definition. I want the shadows. And then I go back down to the tablecloth and I use the black in the shadows, because going over it with the Parma violet I lost the shadows, so I decided to use black to try and get my shadows back, just because the dark purple just wasn't doing it for me. It wasn't what I wanted, and I needed dark shadows. If you find a dark purple or a really dark purple, I think there's like a violet, a really dark violet somewhere, I don't know where. But I couldn't be bothered looking for it, so I just decided to use the black, and then I'll go over it with purple again. But I really needed the shadows in here, because if you look on the left-hand side of the tablecloth, it looks dull and just looks like patterns, but now on the right-hand side with the black there, even though it's black, it's shadows and it's giving it more oomph and more interest, and it looks like what I want it to look like. I want it to look like a very folded tablecloth. I don't know why it's so folded, but yeah, I want it to look like a folded tablecloth, which has shadows and highlights and ridges and things like that. So black was the best way for me to get that look. And now that I've got these shadows in there, I'm going to use the dark purple again and go over the black, because like I said before, I don't want the black to stay black. I want it to be purple. Even adding this dark purple over the black, it's still not quite right, but having more layers will work that out and blending it all together. So don't be disheartened if it looks like crap to begin with. The first couple layers usually do. That is why at night time, when the camera's off and I want to color, but that it's too dark to use the camera, I have the book in front of the computer and I'll just go over layers, the same thing, go over the layers, because I'll just sit there staring at it and I just think it just needs more layers. But you don't particularly want to keep showing the same thing over and over again on the video. So I will do a lot more layers on everything that is here. Now I decided to do all these little wispy things down the bottom. I decided to do them like snow that's being whisked up and around by the Grim Reaper or whoever that is on the other side. I think it's the Grim Reaper. So I get my sky blue light, which is a very, very teeny tiny pencil, and I forgot to buy a new one of sky blue light. So yeah, I don't have another one. And I go over all these wispy little things here. Even though it looks like I'm just rubbing my finger on it, I've actually got sky blue light and just going over it with the sky blue light to try and make it kind of bluey, wispy things. And now, because even wispy things have shadows, I'm going to get the China blue and go in the shadows there where Kirby has put the shadows and just go over the sky blue light that I just did. And of course, after doing the first layer and the shadows, you have to go back and blend it all together with the lightest layer that you have. So I've got the sky blue light again, and I'm just going to blend it all together. But I don't want to bring that blue up too high. So where the shadow is, I don't want to drag it much out of there because then the whole thing will be blue, and I need some of it to be a really light blue, possibly white, because that is just how I see it in my mind, so that is how I want it. And you're about to see the change from this tablecloth of where I obviously went over it at night time. So I just did the exact same colors and I just went over it. I probably did about 3 or 4 extra layers on it. So see how it's darker and see how it's lighter, not lighter, but it is lighter. But some of it's a little not quite right. So I've got my electric eraser and I just erase because the highlights had disappeared a little bit because I color at night time, so sometimes it's not easy to see. So that is what I do at night time. I just do the exact same and I just do it over and over again. So I get the grey lavender and the dark purple and the black and just go over, and the parma violet, and just go over it, just trying to get more definition, more shadows, more highlights, more everything. And this grey lavender here, I'm just blending it all together because it's still not looking right, not looking how I want it to look. And it may seem pointless to you, me doing this layer, but I did this layer because I wanted it to blend together, and now I've got the electric eraser and I'm drawing out the highlights. So I needed to do that grey lavender in order to blend everything together and try and make it connect as one. And then I'm going to go through with this electric eraser and bring out the brightest of the bright highlights. It makes sense to me in my mind. If you figure out a different way of doing it, then have at it. This is just how I do it. I like to color and then sometimes take away a little bit of the color in order to get the highlights. So now I've got the highlights there. Just be careful when you use the electric eraser because sometimes it does smudge things, gets like a big wad of color on it, and then if you touch it, you'll smudge it everywhere. But now I wasn't 100% happy with the grey lavender, so I decided to go to lavender, which is one of the discontinued colors, but I luckily got quite a few boxes that had lavender and lilac in them. Oh, gosh. So I'm going over the highlights that I just took out with the electric eraser with the lavender very softly. I'm not pressing hard at all because I pretty much want to keep those highlights. I just want them to turn lavender. And now back to the constant battle that is coloring. It is losing my shadows. I have lost my shadows again. And that dark purple just isn't doing it for me, so I've got the black again and just going to get the black for the just for the very edges of the highlights there and the darkest shadows. So see how I'm just going down the edge, the bottom edge of the shadows, because that's where it's going to be darkest. Don't color too much of these shadows with the black because the whole shadow isn't going to be black. You want a variation of colors in the shadow, if that makes sense. So you want the darkest to be black and then you want it to move up in purples to get to the highlight. That is how folds in material and that generally work. And this black is a new pencil too, so the camera has taken opposition to it and decided it doesn't want to focus when it's straight up. And then I'm back to working on these wispy blue things, and I just want the top there to be white. I don't want it to be blue or any other color really because I need it to have I want it in my mind to have a highlight. And I want the bottom to be dark bluish and the middle to be light bluish. So I'm just trying to do the exact same what I did before, just trying to define the shadows a little bit more and the lines with this china blue. I want the lines to be defined to make it look like wispy smoke. And now back to the Christmas tree. I'm doing my second layer with chartreuse, just going over and blend, or is this the third layer? I don't know. It's a layer of chartreuse and I'm blending the dark green into the chartreuse again. So this is a relatively, it's medium pressure, this layer. And I don't know why the camera is blurring on it. It's not a big pencil, but just going over the whole tree except the baubles and blending everything together again. So make sure you try and color up to blend the dark green into the chartreuse. So now I'm not happy with how flat the tree is looking, so I get the dark green and I start to do downward strokes in the branches and that to indicate little pine needles. Now I know at this stage I'm going to lose them, not lose them, but if I blend again, they're going to be lost, or not lost, but they're going to be in the background. But that is what I want, and that is why I do layers. So I will do this layer with just drawing the lines of the little branches or little twiggy twigs, whatever they are. And then I'll end up blending it again, and then at the end I'll end up doing more lines, and the initial lines that I'm doing here, you can still see them, but they are blended into the background, so it kind of gives it more depth, if that makes sense. And now on to her. So I had issues with her, trying to figure out what color to do her, trying to figure out what was what, especially around her head. And so this is just the base layer. I decided to do her red because she's near the Christmas tree, and red and green are opposites, complementary, whatever. I'm not an expert, I'm not a technical person. I just, yeah, just look at the color wheel, they're opposites. But yeah, the whole thing here, I'm just going over with the permanent red, and then I will get to the shadows. Now I'm going over all the little snowflakes and that because, like I said before, I'm just going to go over it with acrylic paint. If you're not going to go over it with acrylic paint, then, and you're just going to use white pencil, I probably wouldn't go over it with any colors because that will turn pink. But yeah, this is a very light layer, and just going over the whole thing, trying to figure out where her wispy things are as well. And I realize here that some of her wispy things are her hands, I think. So I accidentally color that red, so I erase it. And then after that, I decide that I didn't finish the fire, the ring of fire. And so I get started on doing that. So this is the fire that I figure that it goes higher and lower. Well, not lower, but I fill in the bits. That I think is the fire. Now, if you see it differently, go for it. This is just how my brain was slowly processing it. And I do it the exact same way as what I did it before. I do the cad yellow light, and then the dark cad orange, and then I blend it all together. And there is one little line there, that one there, that isn't supposed to be orange. I figured that out because it's coming from something else. I don't know. Maybe the tablecloth, I'm not sure. But yeah, I decided that one didn't need to be orange. And now I'm going to do the wispy things that I think are there with the tablecloth, that I think are coming from the tablecloth. To be honest, I'm just guessing at this point. But the wispy things to me, they're, the light layer of the color that you are doing. So I did grey lavender, but then I preferred the lavender. So I'm just here trying to figure out where they are, what wispy things belong to what. And I decide to make that one the tablecloth that goes into the fire. And then I add more red because I think I forgot her sleeve, a little part of her sleeve. Yeah, this is this bit here is a part of the sleeve that I forgot, and I just realized I get distracted easily, so I know I was coloring the purple, but I saw that I didn't do something in the red, so I had to fix it up. But yeah, I get back to the purple, and then the shadows need to be done on these wispy things. So I use the Parma Violet. Just follow the shadows that Kirby has put in there for the wispy things. That's the best way to do it and the easiest way to do it. If you want to add your own, if you think it needs something different, then go for it. And I always try to add little lines with these wispy things just to make it look, I don't know, more realistic. I don't know, to me it seems like wispy things would have like lines going through them. And I know there's probably a technical term for wispy things, but I don't know what it is right now. Ethereal entities floating away from whatever. And now because because I want two different darknesses in her shadow areas. So I've got the crimson red, and I'm going to go over the whole of the shadow with the crimson red. And then I'm going to get the Tuscan red and go over just a little bit of the darker shadows with the Tuscan red. But I wanted to have a couple of different reds in her dress just to make it look better, if you know what I mean. The more colors you have, the more variations you have, usually, the better it looks. So I wanted hers to have a few different color variations. And I don't know if I've said it much before, but always try when you get further into the layers, try to color in the direction that the thing is going. So if this was horizontal, I would be coloring horizontal, and I follow the direction of the lines and I follow the direction of her sleeve and I try to stick with that, and that actually helps it look more realistic. So if I colored this horizontal, you would be able to see that it wasn't colored the right direction. And good old Tuscan red. I got a couple of new ones. I think I got like 4 new ones because I use Tuscan red so much, and it is a real shit sharpener. So yeah, Tuscan red is great for red shadows. I absolutely love it. And then if you add a little black and then go over it again with Tuscan red, it just looks brilliant in the red as the shadows. So I'm not going over all of the shadows with this Tuscan red, but I will go over most of the shadows just to give it interest, if you know what I mean. I know on the smaller shadows it's hard to leave some of the crimson red in there, but yeah, just do your best. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs, I just think it just needs a couple of different reds, and the Tuscan red in the shadows, just going over it a little bit. See how I leave some? And I always try to do a line over the bottom of the shadow as well, just to show that it's darker there. And I usually do firm pressure when I do that line. And this brings out not a mistake, but just a thing I missed. So some of the bricks go down into that wispy thing, the ethereal entity. And so I just grab the powder blue and just fix up the bricks just exactly the same as what I did the bricks before. And now we're on to the blending layer of the dress. So I grab the permanent red and go over everything with the permanent red. I'm pushing a little bit heavier than light. I don't know if it's quite medium, but it may be, but I'm not pushing too hard because I don't want it too red. I want to keep some of the highlights. And see how this is the second layer? Well, I mean, I've done the permanent red, the crimson red, the Tuscan red. To me, that's all the first layer. So this is the start of the second layer, and it's still looking grainy, and that is why I do so many layers, because I don't want it to look grainy unless you need it to look grainy. And now back onto the shadows. So I'm not going to bother doing another layer of crimson red right now. I'm just going to finish this layer of permanent red, and then I'm going to get the Tuscan red and go over the shadows and some of the lines there that I missed before. I just like to I don't like to go over all the lines, but I just like to go over some of the lines just to give it interest. And I am by no means finished with doing her dress. It is so grainy and unblended that it is irritating, but I want to go on and get a layer of just about everything done so that I can see what is going on. So I will go on to her hands and face next, and then her hair, and then try and figure out what is going on with all these wispy things on her head. So starting with cream, I do a light layer on her hands and her face and the wispy things that come off of her hands and her face. Now the cream goes down very waxy, so make sure you don't do a heavy layer on that, because then you won't get too many of the other layers on that you need for her skin, unless you want to make her look ghost-like. I was considering making her look ghost-like, but everything else had color, so I decided to make her have color as well. And next in the skin color is beige. Now, you don't go over the whole hand or the whole thing with the beige. You just mainly go over the darker areas. So not the darkest, but the bits that have shadows. You want to leave some of the cream for the highlights. And the beige sienna is next, and it is for the shadows as well. So the not as you don't color as much with the beige sienna as you do with the beige. So you're narrowing down your shadows a little bit. And of course, skin usually has a lot of different colors under it, but with this one I decided to give her light peach just to add a little bit of the pink tone that humans usually have. And this will be going over the whole thing, so the light peach is helping to blend everything together and add a little bit of the pink tone to everything. And the dark brown for the darker shadows, and just trying to get her fingers back, because using the cream I lost the definition on her fingers, or I lost the lines on her fingers. So I'm just using the dark brown to try and bring that back, and just the darkest shadows that she has. And once I have done the dark brown, I then work my way back down to the lightest color again. So I start with a layer of light peach, just a very light layer, just going over most areas. I still try and leave the highlight areas that are going to be the brightest highlights. I still try to leave them color free. So next is the beige sienna, and I just go over the shadows again with the beige sienna. And then finally the cream to go over and blend everything together and try and get the highlights again. But I have lost the shadows again, so I'll need to go over it again with dark brown, which is what I'm doing now. How convenient is that? So I grab the dark brown and go over the fingers again, because every time you go over it with cream you lose the fingers and the main shadow. I wanted to add a little glow on the tops of her hands and just the edge of her face with the orange, but I end up going a little bit further down the nose than I wanted to, so she looks like a bit of a clown. So this bit here, I erase a little bit of that orange that I do. And then I just wanted the very edge of it with the neon orange. Because she's near the fire, so she's going to have some reflection of the fire on her skin. But right now she looks like a bit of a clown, so that's why I look up and I think, oh crap, got to get rid of that. Now, now, now. and a very light layer of cream just to blend and dull the orange just a little bit, so it's just like a little bit of a reflection. Even though I know she's a grandma and grandmas usually have brown hair, grey hair, I decided to do hers brown because I didn't think grey would look so good with all the other colours that I'd done. So she dyes her hair, or maybe in the afterlife you keep the original hair that you had. I don't know. But she's got light brown hair. So I start with light umber and then I work my way up, building into the shadows. I don't focus too much on her hair because it's not really a huge thing in this picture. And then I decide that maybe this back thing here might be like a little bit of a hood or something, or maybe that's part of the wispy thing. I'm not quite sure what it is at the back there. But I've got the dark brown just to do some of the shadows. I decided to do this head thingy. I think maybe she's wearing like a hood that's on her cloak, on her coat, and the hair's just coming up from the inside out. I don't know, that's the way I saw it. And as I'm doing the red up here, I realized that I need to do some more bricks, so I go ahead and fix up the bricks. And now back to her hair, and I get the dark umber and do the shadows with the dark umber. Nothing unusual here, just exactly the same as the way I do everything else. You do the light, and then you do the shadows, and then you go over it again. That's just exactly it. But I do try and do straight lines because it's hair. And I'm finally getting around to doing another layer on this red dress, which has been bothering me because it's grainy and not the way I like it. I like to finish things when I start, but I was just trying to get everything into place. So going over this with another layer in the shadows of the Tuscan red, and see how it is darkening everything, and it just looks so much better. The more layers you add, the darker the shadows get. And surprise, surprise, the permanent red to blend everything together. Just blending the whole thing, the shadows into the lighter ones, just so it doesn't have a harsh edge. So you want it to be smooth, blended edge. I decide that back bit is a red wispy thing or part of a hood, or I don't know, so I erase the little bit of hair that I do there and I make it this bit here, so I make it like a red wispy thing. I'm not 100% sure, it could be hair, it could be the red wispy thing, so I made it red just to add a little bit of a different color there. And don't forget to add the shadows. Speaking of shadows, it's finally time to darken the darkest of the shadows on her dress thingy. So I use black to go over the darkest parts of the shadows. I use fairly heavy pressure because I want it to stay. I don't want it to disappear or go anywhere. And I want it to be definitely defined. I want it to be seen, if you know what I mean. I want the shadows to be seen, and as you can see where I've done the black, and it's looking so much more realistic than what it was. See how these shadows definitely look a lot darker now, and she's starting to look a lot more, I don't know, lively. But the shadows look black, and I don't want the shadows to be black on her dress, and so I will go over it again with another layer of Tuscan red, which is what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go over all of the black and just the main shadows with the Tuscan red. I'm using relatively, so medium to heavy pressure with this Tuscan red because I want it to start to get rid of all the graininess that I've got there. And the reds, sometimes it's hard to get rid of the graininess, especially with the permanent red. So I'm starting to use heavier pressure just so I can start to blend everything together. And while I'm doing this on camera, off camera in a minute, I do quite a few layers of her red coat, the exact same as what I've done here. I use the permanent red, I use the black, I use the Tuscan red, and I use some of the crimson red. And I just go over it and over it. I don't know how many layers I did. I think, well, I did another 3 layers. I got to believe what I said the day before because I've forgotten everything I do now. So yeah, I did another 3 layers and see how blended it looks now. There is no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing now. I'm just getting these utensils and food done on this table. I wanted the candelabra to be gold, but in the end I do end up going over it with acrylic paint because the Prismacolor gold just wasn't doing it for me. And I just wanted to see what acrylic paint would look like on here instead of using the gold paint pen. And I learned a while ago that the best color to darken gold with is a brown. So that is why I'm using the dark umber. It's to give the shadows and to darken it. Just doing a second layer of this because, well, you lose your gold. It doesn't look gold enough, so well, I do more layers usually, but yeah, I'm just trying to get the gold color and the shadows into it. I'm not going to go into too much details about the food because you can do the food any way you want. I saw these as potatoes, roast potatoes, and I saw that as kind of like a basket. It could be a bowl, I don't know, but I saw it as a basket, so that's why I did it this sand and brown color. And then the perfect little potatoes or mash, I don't know what it is. I thought they were mashed potatoes, so I thought it was a mashed potato, a roast chicken, 2 cakes, and some sort of weird lollies, or maybe gumballs, or I don't know. Pop, what are those? Cake pops. Yeah, they're actually quite yummy. So yeah, I did these just any color, the cake pops anyway, or whatever they are, boiled lollies. I don't know. But I'm not going to go into too much detail of this because you can do them whatever color you want. And onto the flame on the candelabra. As usual, I start with the yellow in the middle and then I work my way out to the orange, and that is pretty basic. I use the yellow again to blend the yellow out into the orange. And because some people have called me anal retentive, and that will be some people in my family and friends circle, I have to do the side of the wick a grey just to give the wick, even though you can barely even see the wick, I needed to give the wick a little bit of lifelike, so I had to give it a shadow. And just going over the candelabra again with the dark umber just to give the shadow, trying to make it more 3D like. And finally onto the purple wisps of the tablecloth. So just the same as what I've done all the other wisps with. Start with the light color and then work your way to the dark and then back to the light again. Now if you see these wisps different than me, then go for it. Like I said, I did have trouble with some of these things on this page, so I just did what I thought. Adding the shadows on the bottom there because that's where they should be, theoretically, logically, I don't know. Yeah, I use the Parma violet and then I'll use the dark purple and then I'll blend it all together. And now I'm going to do the baubles. I won't go into too much details of the baubles either, just try and add at least two colors, so a light and a dark. So color the whole thing in the one color and then go over it with the dark. Not go over where the shadows will be. So I put my shadows down the bottom and a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right, depending on where they were on the tree. So I'm using the Tuscan red on this one to create the shadows. It's hard to see because of the stupid camera, but yeah, I'm making the shadows down the bottom on that one. So just go through and do all of them, whatever color you want. I wanted just a little bit more of a shadow, so I add the black around the bottom edge of where the shadow will be. Onto the wispy things. Now if you want to make these blue or whatever color you make the ones on the outside, then go for it, but I wanted to make these look like they were coming from the tree, just to add a couple of different colors into the equation. So I make them chartreuse, and then I use dark green. So just the same as everything else, I'm adding the shadow down the bottom of the chartreuse that I just did, and I'm just going to do a heavy line on the bottom and then sometimes blend up a little bit. Since they're so small, it's a little bit difficult to blend up too much without covering the whole thing. And then I will blend it all together with the chartreuse to make it seem, I don't know, realistic as a tree floating away into some ethereal Grim Reaper little matchstick girl world can be. But yeah, I'm grabbing the chartreuse now and going to blend it together, and it just makes it adds more color and makes see how it adds more color, obviously because you're doing another layer. But I know it's simple, but some people don't think about doing layers. Some people just do one layer and then that's it, but the layers are so important in my opinion. And now working on these damn wisps at the back. It took me forever to figure out what to do with these and what they were, and then I just decided, what the hell, they're just the snow blowing around. So I just did them the color of the snow. I did them powder blue with, leaving little bits for white and then adding shadows. After realizing what I was going to do with these background wisps, I was actually quite happy because it basically finished the whole page for me. So when I add the blue and then the darker blues, it finishes the whole page and makes it a lot quicker, because if I did them all different colors, it would have just been a nightmare. So I'm glad I decided to do it wispy snow. And then I do change a few spots to black because I didn't like it, just looked flat with just all the blue, and when I added the black it gave it more interest. So as usual, adding these shadows, just going around adding the shadows where Kerby has put the shadows. I wasn't putting too much thought into these wisps because I'd had enough trouble trying to figure out what they were, and I didn't want to add and change anything, so I just decided to follow exactly what Kerby had put in there and figure that he knew what he was doing. I don't know how much time everyone else spends on coloring a page, but this one here was relatively quick for me. So this time lapse here is 3 hours, so it's times 2 speed. So that's 6 hours, and then all my time off camera would probably add up to another 4 hours just doing the exact same, the extra layers. So an average page, and this was a relatively easy page once you figured everything out. The average page for me takes 10, 12 hours. I don't know if what everyone else does takes 10 to 12 hours, but I don't know why I'm such a slow colorer. I mean, I'm not slow, but I like to add things like, I don't know, lots of layers, I suppose. I don't know. But I'm happy with how I do things, and I wish I could speed up the time, and I wish there was infinite hours in the day some days not so much. Some days when the kids are sick, you just want the day to end. I've just had a kid with, my 16-year-old had tonsillitis and an ear infection, and my other one, he has adenoid problems, and so he got the cold off my 16-year-old, and then his adenoids flared up, and so I had to get all that fixed up. And it is all fixed up now, but it is still winter here, and they're back at school, so chances are they're going to come home with every cootie known to man. And it's those days you just don't want infinite hours. In those days you just want to go to sleep and then everything just go away. I don't know if people like to hear me talk. I think it makes it a little bit more interesting if I explain things and then talk about other things. If you just want to know what is going on, then that is what I'll do, but I just don't know. So sometimes I'll talk, sometimes I won't talk. So in this video you got a bit of a combination of me talking about crap that isn't relevant to colouring and then talking about colouring. And that is my watch letting me know I need to stand up. Now I'm going to blend all these wispy things together, the powder blue and the china blue that I've done with the powder blue. I use medium pressure on this, just blending everything together, and try to go the direction that the wisps are going. So the same way that you do with everything else, you go the direction that whatever it is you were colouring is going. I don't know about you, but I've found with the powder blue that it goes blunt very quickly. I know Prismacolors tend to go blunt, but this one here went, like flat, blunt, very quick. It's nothing, no problem. It's, I just, notice these things about certain colors. I notice that Tuscan red is shocking for breakage and shocking for sharpening. Lemon yellow, I found when I do a layer of it, it is really hard to get anything over the top of the lemon yellow. It's just a weird thing I've had, so I try to avoid, I think it's lemon yellow. I know what it is when I open up my drawers. I try to avoid the lemon yellow because it just, I don't know, it must be such a thick pigment or something that it just covers everything. Cream does it too. Cream is fairly thick as well, so when you get a layer of cream, it's hard to get anything over it. So that is why when I'm doing skin, I do a light layer of cream. I try my hardest not to press hard because it just covers everything very thick. And now onto my favorite color for blue shadows, indigo blue. It is one of my favorite colors in the Prismacolor pencils. Caran d'Ache Luminance have a dark indigo blue, and I did use it in a previous coloring, but it is almost black. I mean, I know indigo blue is very dark and is almost black, but I guess I would use that if I didn't want to use black to go over the shadows, or if I wanted it to kind of look black. But I like this dark indigo, I like this indigo blue in the Prismacolor range because it's blue and it's dark, and it just gives me the shadow look that I want. And I know you're probably sitting there thinking, oh my god, this woman is so boring, and I am boring. I am boring because I sit down and I think about colors and what colors I like and what colors annoy me and what do this and what do that. I haven't learned, actually, I really want to learn the polychromos. I haven't done much with polychromos. I have a couple of sets of them, but I haven't done much with them. I'm mainly stuck with Prismacolor, and I've branched out to the luminance and the light fast. But yeah, I think I might try and do a polychromos one and just try and learn their colors. But I'm a creature of habit, and I've learnt the Prismacolor colors and how they look, and I like to do that. Oh, just going over these shadows on these wisps down the bottom. I know you can't see it. I must have moved the book down out of the range of the camera. But I'm just going over the lines on the very bottom of these wisps and the snow down the bottom with the indigo blue, just to give it shadows. And then I'm going up here to try and fix up the bricks. And here I am thinking, what color am I going to do that? And then I go away because I don't know what color I'm going to do that. And like I said before, I'm not going to go over and explain everything with all of these. You do them whatever color you like. I've told you what I saw them as. I saw these as potatoes, roast potatoes, and a chicken. But yeah, do them any color you want. Oh, I saw lettuce in front of the chicken too. I don't know if that's what people lay their roast chicken in front of, but onto, but makes sense, I suppose, if you want a salad with your chicken. But I don't know, you get all the chicken fat dripping onto the lettuce, and I don't know if the lettuce would be very nice, especially if you put the chicken on there when it was hot. Then the lettuce would be wilted. But anyway, with these, you're just going to do the usual what I usually do: a light layer and then a shadow layer, and then I blend it together. And then if I need to, I'll go over it with a dark color just to get on the very edges and things like that. But I didn't do anything fancy, didn't do anything too amazing, because these aren't the focus for me. If the whole page was one big roast potato, I would sit there and I would work out every color that I would need. But because it is such a little thing to me, it doesn't need to be, it's irrelevant to me. These sorts of things, and I've said it before, they just kind of get in my way. Sometimes I have trouble thinking of colors for these things, like those cakes. I'm sitting there thinking, cakes are usually white, you know, with maybe just a little bit of icing or something. But having a white cake is just, you know, not coloring it really, or doing it grey. But I figured it out, and I just wanted to add a little bit of color with all these little circly things there. I don't know what they are. I really don't know what they are. So I just did them any color I wanted, and then just added a little bit of a shadow. And I am a simple creature, and because those little things on the table there annoy me, I have to go back and do something that doesn't annoy me so much. So I'm just going over the lighter parts of her hair with beige, just to give a little bit of highlight there. And then I'm going to go over the tree again, because I don't want to go back to all those little things on the table. The tree, in my opinion, needs darker shadows, and so I've got the dark green, and I'm going over with fairly heavy pressure now just to get into those shadows and try and get them really dark, because you need the shadows and you need the highlights, and it makes the tree, or it makes whatever it is you're colouring. And I know I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll probably say it 10,000 more. You need the shadows. And then I just do the very bottom of her hair there with black, because it's going to be shadows down there, so I just decided to do it black. And then I brave my hatred and go over these cakes. I decide to make the cake white, and I decide my favorite color is pink, so I will do the icing in pink, and that is my whole thought process for that. So I do the little icing bits in pink, and then I just put a little bit of a shadow on the pink with the crimson red. I figured in the spirit world or heaven or wherever she is that they would have gold plates, so I decided to do the plate or the tier thingy, whatever it is, in gold. And I do go over it later with acrylic gold just to make it more gold. And like I said before, the best color to shadows on gold is brown, in my opinion. If you found a different color, then yay, let me know. Well, yeah. But I go over the shadows with the brown, and I go over the gold again. And all these little gumball, Pop-Tarts, boiled lolly things, I just do them whatever colour. So just go forth and colour whatever colour you want. Just try and add a teeny tiny bit of a shadow to it. You'll see when I've coloured them all in that even though it seems stupid, just adding that little pop of colour there with all these different colours, it adds a little bit to the page. And even though I really don't enjoy doing these teeny tiny little things, I do enjoy doing some teeny tiny little things. I do, but just little things like this, I don't. I don't know why, I just don't. But when they are integral, wherever they are really important in the scene, I enjoy doing them. But just these sorts of little things, integral. Oh, I don't know. I'm sounding like a complete moron. I can't say anything right. And it's almost lunchtime. Yeah, I think the colors here definitely it adds something to it. So they are important. I just don't thoroughly enjoy doing them. So I do try to add shadows, and I do try to color them the best I can and pick the best colors I can. I just don't enjoy them, so I don't give them a huge amount of my time or my thought process. I probably should. I would become a better colorist if I gave everything the same amount of thought process. But sometimes I just can't. Just doing this hot chicken on the cold lettuce, and I just do it beige and then add the shadows with browns. It's that simple. And I needed to make that lettuce. No, it doesn't matter what it was to me. I don't know if it's lettuce or whatever it is, but I needed to make it lettuce because we had a couple of beige colored things, you know, the gold and then the beige, and it was kind of getting beiged out. So the green adds a little bit of a change and a pop in the color as well. So I do actually think about these things, just not as much as I think about everything else. And why did I do the plate orange, you ask? Well, that would be because I needed, like I just said, I needed a pop of color, and the tablecloth is purple, and the complement to purple is orange. And so it stands out, and the orange and the green there stand out and add a little bit to the table. Otherwise, it would be a very bland table. Decided to make this collar thing on her, not red. I was going to make it red, but I decided to break up the red with a little bit of green. And so I do the first layer, obviously, with the chartreuse, and because it's a tall dark green pencil, the camera gets upset. But I just do the shadows with dark green. And then looking at the platter on the table, I decide that the cake needs shadows on the edge, so and the bottom. So I decided to add cool grey to it just to give it shadows and a little bit of circular depth. And after doing the cool grey, I get the black, and I only use a little bit of black just down the bottom and on the edges. And I also do black along the right hand side of some of the dark green hues that are on the cake, just to give it shadow. And I get the cool grey again to blend the black into the cool grey, and I try not to go over the top of the white that's there. And then I get the black again and draw lines where the tiers of the cake are, just to give it shadows as well. So this part here, if you decide to do it partly black like I did, I wouldn't worry about this. But if you decide to keep it the blue, then this is just adding more darkness. I keep saying it's adding more darkness to the wisps on the swirls, on the wisps. But I do go through and change some of those blue wisps to black. And there was that teeny tiny bit there, just at the top there where all the little snowflakes are, that I still couldn't figure out what color it was supposed to be, so I just decided to do it like a snow blue. So I basically turn it into like either a snow or a wisp. I'm not quite sure what. I think I'll try to make it snow because it doesn't quite fit in with the wisps. So I'm just doing a shadow with the China blue, and then I go over it again with the powder blue to blend it all together. And I can't forget the most important part of the tree, which is the star. And stars are usually gold or silver. I didn't want to do it silver, I wanted to do it gold. And then I go over some of the gold baubles that I did with the gold Prismacolor pencil. I go over them with the gold paint pen because it just looks like a better gold, to be honest. And now, after staring at the background, I finally decide that I want to change some of those ones into black, just to add some, like a change in the color, because it was just too flat, it all being blue. And adding the black definitely makes it, gives it a little bit of variance and change, and I prefer it with the black. So I'm glad I changed it to black. But the camera does not like my new black pencil and is, yeah, acting up. So just go through and color. I'm doing it very, very hard pressure because I want to go over the blue that I've done and I want to cover it in the black. I mean, you could even do the black, you could do it white, you could do it any other color. I just wanted to do it to be like a night sky, and see how it changes the background and it gives it sort of, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but it makes it more interesting and dynamic with the wisps and then the night sky peeking through. So that I prefer that to just all the blue. And after I've gone through and done all these really hard pressure black spots, I then get distracted and go through and go over some more of the shadows on just about everything that I want darker. So I go through some of the darkest shadows on the tree and some of the dark shadows on her. Don't do too much. I'm mainly doing the right hand side and the very bottom of the shadows because that's where it's going to be darkest. And I'm using very firm pressure to really push that black into there and give it the dark shadow that I want. And I know I've said it many times, but if you look at her, you can definitely see she looks better with the darker shadows, and the tablecloth does too. And I do apologize for the camera. I look at it intermittently, but sometimes when I'm coloring, I just forget. And obviously, it doesn't like long pencils. It has an issue with it. But as you're going along, or as I'm going along, you can see that things look so much better with the dark, dark shadows. Just getting some dark brown to go over the shadows on the star. And now the fun bit where you add all the highlights and all the things that you just want to add. So my white gel pen. Sometimes this gel pen has trouble going over colored pencils, so I have to stop and clear it. I don't know, it must get clogged or something. But I think when you start adding the highlights and when you've got the shadows in there and you start adding all these little bright highlights and things like that, I think the whole picture really starts to come together. The highlights mixed with the shadows, mixed with all the layers, and the combination of the colors just makes the page come to life. And the highlights are just as important as the shadows and the layers. I wasn't really thinking too much about where I was putting these lines on the tree. I just wanted some highlights in there to indicate that, you know, there was a reflection of a highlight of a little pine needle or something. So there was no real thought process going through my mind as I was doing the highlights on the tree. But when I swap to the highlights on other things, you need to think more about where the highlights are going to be. So the highlights on the tablecloth are going to be above the shadow. So the highlights here on the table are going to be above the shadow, and as I add them, it looks so much better with the highlight, in my opinion. And now on to just all the little bits that make the page just come together. I tried using gouache paint. It worked all right, but I didn't like it in the end, so I do go over this with white acrylic paint. You do whatever it is that you prefer. If you prefer gouache, then go over it with gouache, but I just found it wasn't as white, or it just didn't give the look that I wanted, and white acrylic paint does give that look. The gouache is very thick. I don't know if that's... I didn't buy an expensive... I hate saying the word gouache. I didn't buy an expensive paint because, well, I don't have the option here in Hervey Bay. We don't have art stores. We have cheap stores. because people here aren't artists, you know. Every art store that's ever been here is closed down within a matter of weeks or whatever. I remember when I first moved here a few years ago, well, the second time I moved here a few years ago, there was an art store here, and I went up there and I wanted polychromos pencils, and the store owner says to me, "Polychromos are crap, Prismacolor are the best." And I wanted to argue with her, but I, didn't, because Prismacolor are good, but I don't think they're the best in the world. I think there are quite a few other pencils that probably outdo them. But yeah, she was of the mind that if you didn't buy Prismacolor, then you didn't know what you were doing. So I didn't really go there very often, and it ended up closing down anyway. So just go over all these little snowflakes here that Kerby has put there. If you want to keep it gouache, keep it gouache. Otherwise, just skip this step and go straight to white acrylic paint. Or even, to be honest, the white gel pen actually did a decent job too, because I did some with the white gel pen and it actually didn't do too bad of a job. But this is the final details that I'm adding. I wanted to make the Christmas tree glittery because Christmas is glitter. Yay. I like the look of glitter. I hate glitter on me. I hate just even one little square of glitter on me. I can't stand it, and I can't stand it anywhere on my workspace. But I love the way it looks. So if I'm going to use glitter, I will go outside right away from where anything is that I like, and then I'll use the glitter out there, and then I'll come back in, because I just hate glitter anywhere, touching anything. And don't forget, after you have done everything, even if you don't use pan pastels or you don't use anything like that, you still need to use fixative on your page, because when you shut the book, the colors are going to transfer slowly to the other page. Now, I don't know if it happens so much on this one because they're both colored, but when the book is closed, it will transfer, especially if there's something on top of that book, pushing down on it. So fixative is always important to spray at the end when you've done everything. I actually do a few layers of fixative on my pages just because I do so many layers. I have a workable fixative. I do prefer the Mr. Super Clear, but it is a tiny can and it is super hard to get here in Australia and super expensive. And if you order any can over the mail, you have to pay like $30 extra for postage because it's hazardous or something. I don't know. And nobody here in Hervey Bay sells fixative. So I always try and get a fixative when I go out somewhere. And grabbing my trusty white gel pen, my jelly roll pen, which has lasted forever, I just want to do some stars in this black night sky that I've got there. So I just go around and dot, 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 just doing some stars. I actually enjoyed doing all these little dots and the little stars because it's starting to come together and it's starting to look the way that I wanted it to look. And then I do go down to her and do some snowflakes on her with the white gel pen, and I think I do the crosses as well. And the white, yeah, see, I fill in, I'm doing a star. Not a very good star, but it's a star nonetheless. And yeah, it looks exactly the same as the gouache paint. That's why I got a little bit annoyed. Just doing a couple of highlights on her. I don't want too many because then it will just look tacky. So just adding a couple of highlights. just using the white gouache paint to do a reflection on all the baubles because they're shiny and they should have a reflection on them if there is a light in the place, and because you can see there is a light. That is my understanding anyway. I don't know the physics and the technicalities of it. I just like to, when it's a round circular, same thing, sphere, round circular sphere. My son is doing 3D prisms and, you know, things like that. So a round circular sphere. I think that's kind of redundant. Yeah, I like to, anyway, I like to add a reflection and a shadow to all of those sorts of things. And it's bringing the page together. It really is. Now I think my hot chicken ruined my lettuce, so I decided to go over it again with some dark green and some chartreuse. And yes, I was being stupid. Um, I didn't like the way the lettuce seemed to have no definition, so I just wanted to add a little bit more shadows to it. And I'm grabbing the trusty white gel pen again and just going over the snowflakes that I missed and adding some more of my own. And then doing some little bits of highlights on like the candelabra and the gumball cake pop boil lolly things and the cake, and just on the left hand side of things just giving a bit of a highlight because that's where the reflection or the sun or whatever it is, it's not sun, it's nighttime, where the big, I don't know, light is coming from. Just giving the lettuce some highlights, and then I decided to add more stars because there wasn't enough. And then I decided, because I bought it and I haven't used it yet, I only bought it a few days ago, but it was $5, this Deco Art Galaxy glitter, $5 from Spotlight. I saw them and there was quite a few of them, but I only got a couple and I regret it now. But they're so glittery and it doesn't get all over me. And I decided to do the baubles in the glitter and the star in the glitter as well, even though the camera goes in and out. All I'm doing is going over the baubles, making sure I get some of this. It's kind of like a glitter glue, but it's not. It's a glitter paint, but there's no real paint color coming out. But it looks really pretty and really shiny. And I go over all the baubles and the star as well. And I think I do like 2 layers because I wanted more glitter. Because like I said, I like glitter. I just don't like glitter touching me. I don't like it on me and I don't like it near me. And I don't like it spilling. I hate it spilling. I have I've had 5 kids. I've got 5 kids, and they've all loved doing arts and craft, and they all love glitter, and they all love spilling glitter. Oh, You have no idea how happy I am now that most of my kids are all grown. I don't have to deal with glitter anymore. So happy about that. But yeah, I decided to do, initially I was just doing the gold ones in with the glitter, but then I really liked the glitter, so I decided to do all of the baubles in the glitter. I didn't like the look of the gold pencil, so I decided to go over it with the rich gold acrylic paint from Jo Sonja, and then I add the shadows again with the brown pencil. I could have just used the gold paint pen, but I just wanted to try something different. I just wanted to, I don't know, see how things looked on things. You know, I don't usually use acrylic paint or anything on these pages, and I don't really want to. I want to mainly stick with colored pencils, but just for some embellishments or things like that, I just thought I'd see how it worked out. And upon staring at the baubles, I realized I really like those gold baubles with the galaxy glitter on them, so I decided to color all of them in the galaxy glitter. And yeah, I'd make sure everyone has a little bit of glitter on it. Because it's not Christmas unless you have glitter everywhere. Like I don't know, but about you, but whenever I pull the tree down, there's always glitter just everywhere, and I don't know where it's come from. I try not to have glitter, but there's just glitter everywhere. So I don't know what it's from. Maybe it's from the tinsel. I don't know. But it's not Christmas without glitter, so I decided to add some glitter to this. And I'm glad I spent the extra time because I'd finished this page and I was done, and then I thought, no, I'm going to add some glitter and some gold paint and then some pan pastels to the flame. And I am glad that I spent the extra hour just doing that, and it was actually the best part of the page. I thoroughly enjoyed doing it, and I'm really glad I did it. Now the paint is dry, I'm just going to add the shadows with the light umber. I don't want to go too dark with it, so I'm just adding light umber, and nothing really much I can blend it into, so just trying to make the shadows. And you can skip this part if you want. This is me just going over the gouache with the white paint because I just wasn't happy with the way that it turned out. So that is just exactly the same as what I just did, only with white acrylic paint. And then I got this Joe Sonja opal dust paint. It's basically the glitter glue. And I decided, what the hell, I'm going to go over the Christmas tree with it as well. I'm going to make the Christmas tree all glittery and sparkly. And I really like the way the Christmas tree looks with the glittery, sparkly opal dust. I'm really glad I bought that. If I could get more colors, I would. I think this one is just like a clear one, so it basically is just glitter glue, but it's artist glitter glue. And make sure the glitter glue is dry on your tree before you do the pan pastels. And I'm just blending the orange to make it seem like there is a glow around it. And for smoke and things like that, pan pastels are amazing. Pan pastels are amazing for everything. I'm not going to lie. I love pan pastels. They just add a little bit extra to things. And so I add them when I want smoke or flames or clouds or something like that. They're really good. I really like them. And I have all the colors. So yeah, I try not to use them too much because some people don't have them. And I just want to stick mainly to colored pencil. And here I am over here just playing with the flame because I wanted to. But that is it, and I hope you enjoy, and I hope you enjoy the commentary. If you don't, let me know, and I won't do it again because it adds like an extra 2 hours of time to the page and the editing and then the uploading of a different video. But I enjoy explaining it, but if you don't want to hear it, then let me know.